Hey guys, welcome into this special live edition of the Recruiting Breakdown here on Tuesday. My name is Jerry Hamilton, joined by CJ Vogel as always. Our sponsor today is Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders. Special thank you to him for being the sole sponsor of the Recruiting Breakdown. We want to do this live maybe once a month, maybe twice a month in May. In June, we may do it weekly live because so much going on with official visits. But we also wanted to come to you guys live today because Texas Longhorns picked up a key commitment yesterday. Jackson Christian on Texas football, 4-star offensive guard. He's a tackle at Port Neches Groves. We see him as a guard at next level. He committed to Texas over Texas A&M Monday at a visit there by Kyle Flood. That was Kyle Flood's day to go down to Port Neches. That's when the spring game for the PNG Indians, the reigning state champs, was scheduled. Obviously, the weather, anybody that lived in Houston or along I-10 yesterday knows the weather was brutal. So that game got canceled yesterday, or not canceled, pushed back to today. But Jackson Christian, he went ahead and committed to the University of Texas over and it was close for a while. CJ, I know you talked to him. We talked to him after his April visit. He was there with his mom, and I think we knew Jackson really liked Texas. Kyle Flood had been on him longer than anybody else. Kind of similar to Jaden Chapman recruitment, and that Kyle Flood was kind of the first big school through the door. So that means they got him on campus a lot. But Texas had to marry the academic, the engineering piece with the football piece to win out over Texas A&M, and they did so.
Yeah, they did. And a long time. That dates all the way back to about this time last year when they offered him at a camp. Again, just able to maintain that relationship and continue to build. My favorite part about his tape is how quickly he climbs to the second level. He's always looking for work. If there's not a guy right out in front of him, he's looking for a different colored jersey to go out there and lay the wood on. And that's one of the things I really, really enjoy about his tape. Of course, I think he suits better for the interior. That's something that certainly has been a part of his recruitment and where he will play at the next level, interior, maybe center as well. We'll see. But man, really active, good athleticism, can really, really find someone to lay the wood on him. And that's a big part for me. So credit to Kyle Flood for winning this one, because for a while it felt like Texas was that team to beat. And then, it kind of came down to Texas and Texas A&M. And we've talked about it. This is a big year for Texas A&M. They need to have some splash wins on the offensive line this cycle. They're not going to find it out of Port Neches Groves. And I thought it was really telling. He made the visit to Texas April 13th and was able to see the second scrimmage of the spring, and then bounce back that next Monday to come see Texas again for another unofficial with the staff. Really, really impressive prospect. I think he's got a bright future. He's a smart kid, and he's a kid in the offensive line who's a blue-collar guy. He's certainly, comes to work every day. I think he's a guy that can flip the switch and has that mean streak, which is exactly what you want from an interior offensive lineman as well. I think it's a good ad for the Longhorns.
Yeah, I do too. Look, Texas, the Golden Triangle area is important for me in recruiting because those are tough, blue-collar, physical, hard-nosed kids. Ty Anthony Smith, even though Slida Build is that guy. You can go back through the history of guys from that area, guys Texas has recruited from that area. Earl Thomas was that guy, right? I'll go back to some guys Texas didn't recruit. Nobody recruited. Sean Weatherspoon, when I went to see him at Jasper, he was committed to Houston. It was his only offer. Missouri came in and offered him late. Tough, hard-nosed, smart kid, really a grinder that was a hell of an athlete playing linebacker. You just get James Brown was that guy coming out of Beaumont, Westbrook. So you could just go down the list of guys from Port Arthur Memorial. Jamal Charles, tough, hard-nosed guy, running back. Yes, great athlete. But I think it's very important to recruit those. Roshan Johnson was that guy, by the way, out of Port Neches Grove. So Texas is 2 for 2. Actually 3 for 3. They signed another offensive lineman from PNG. So the last 3 big-time recruits PNG's had have all gone Texas' way. But Jackson Christian is that guy. He's for people wondering about the combine measurables for him: 6'5", 310, 81, 82-inch wingspan, 10-inch hands. So he's got all the measurables. He's got the intelligence. He's got the toughness. Plays for Coach Joseph, son of Gary Joseph, Texas legendary coach at Katy. Well-coached team. He's a winner. They lost in the state title game his sophomore year, came back and won it his junior year. So he checks a lot of boxes. And I think it was a good win. and a smart take by the Texas Longhorns. 1 out of either 5 or 6 offensive linemen in this class. And we're going to take a bunch of you guys' questions today. We're going to be on here for about 45 minutes today. We'll get out of here about 1 p.m. I got to hit the road to get to a 2 p.m. practice this afternoon. But we also wanted to talk about, CJ, 2 new official visitors from the state of California for Texas. It is big.
That moves the list up pretty high on that group of California prospects coming to Texas again in the month of June. You actually had this note up earlier on Texas football. It's 4-star cornerback Dijon Lee and 4-star linebacker Madden Farao. I mean, Texas is continuing to build out west. We know that they've concerted a lot of effort and attention towards the deep south with the addition of Kenny Baker and now Tashard Choice in this staff. But, man, you look out west and this group of guys coming in, it's pretty impressive. And Dijon Lee was one that had visited Texas last spring before he really started to blow up his recruitment. Really lengthy cornerback, can run, comes from a good program out in the West Coast as well. But when you talk about the length that Texas is looking to add with the combination of speed, this guy fits the mold. And I think Texas has seen that. He's been in communication with Texas for a while. He actually dropped the top 8 or 10 a couple weeks back, a couple months back. That did not include the Longhorns. So to see that Texas get back involved with this recruitment, it's pretty impressive. So right now, I believe that official visitor count from the state of California is up to 8. And, man, it's pretty impressive, Jerry.
Yeah, 8, and it may end up being 10. I mean, and that's the reality is, and this is the most Texas has ever brought in for official visits from the state of California. Yes, Steve Sarkisian obviously has some SoCal ties. Chris Jackson has some SoCal ties as well, obviously modern-day grad. But this is the addition of Johnny Nansen that you see working here. I also expect Las Vegas to be an area that Texas hits in the future with Johnny Nansen. He was already out there a couple of weeks ago to start his spring evaluation period. But this is what I think we're going to see from Texas. I think you're going to see just Kenny Baker, the new hire on defense, the defensive line, is going to work that East Coast, right? He is going to work Florida. He's going to work Georgia with the Tashard Choice. They're going to work that East Coast area, the Georgia, Florida area. Johnny Nansen is going to really work California. He offered Josiah Sharma. Then last week, Kenny Baker and Nansen were at the school, and PK, I believe. But Dijon Lee, 6'4" corner. Look, this is a national recruitment, guys. He's visiting Washington. Again, where did Johnny Nansen come from? Arizona. Where did Jed Fish come from? Arizona. They were in on Dijon Lee. So he's visiting Washington. But then he's got Georgia, and he's got Texas, and he's got Alabama. So, I mean, look, and he's got somebody else in there as well, maybe Notre Dame. But this is a recruitment that is a national recruitment. There's a number of SEC teams involved in this, and that is good news for Texas. Now, Texas gets a midweek visit. That's the bad news. Sark did not bring in a midweek visitor last year. I think to get Dijon on campus, they had to bring him in midweek. And yes, we had some people jump out there on TexasFootball.com. By the way, it was pretty funny. The Bijan Mustertson NIL writes itself. There's no doubt about that. But this will be a tough recruitment. Kalen DeBoer, they've been on this one a while too at Washington, now at Alabama. Georgia's in on this one. But these are the guys you want to swing on. You have to swing on these national guys. And Texas needs more shots on goal at corner in this class. So that was good. They love Aiden Anning. They love Dorian Brew. They really like Caleb Chester. They're taking a swing at Devin Williams from Buford, who's committed to Auburn. But this gives you another shot on goal here at the cornerback position, and a guy they really like. And I'll say this, Texas may not be done in California. I put this in some notes on TexasFootball.com. Not a better time to go be an OTF OG for $39.95 for an annual subscription than now. Texas, I think Terry Joseph goes out and sees Adonis Curry one more time. The corner from Court Hill and Lancaster, 4-star. He's a stud. Texas still trying to get him on campus. That could be another California kid. So Texas is they're expanding that net in California, which I do like, because I'm telling you, with USC and UCLA and Oregon going to the Big Ten, that's not going to be for everybody out there. If you're in the SEC, you like recruiting against Big Ten teams in California, especially if you have Johnny Nansen. It rains in California. What the hell? I didn't even see that on the huddle tape there. The other guy that's visiting Texas, CJ, is a linebacker from Jay Sarah Catholic. And I'm a huge fan of this guy, like I am Matea Tegoai. Madden, I don't know how to pronounce his name, is one of the best linebackers in the country.
Absolutely. I mean, just looking at the still photos of him on the Twitter, Jerry, he looks like a guy that lives and breathes the weight room. 6'3", 210. You might see him up to 220 by the end of his senior year, even maybe a little bit more than that. But man, his tape, he can fly, and I'm really impressed by him. This also kind of fits into what Texas has recruited under Johnny Nansen at the linebacker spot. 6'3", long-levered, can run, can get sideline to sideline. Right now, Texas is in it for two really talented guys in the state of Texas that I think they're at the top of the board for. One is Elijah Barnes, who's already in the class, and two, Riley Pettijohn. And I saw him on Friday. You see the speed immediately. And this is exactly the same similar type of situation whenever you turn on Madden Faramo's huddle here that we're watching. You see him go sideline to sideline. You see him track the football. And my goodness, when he gets his hands on you, good luck. You're not going too far. But to your point about Texas going out into California, I mean, 8 guys right now. You could go down the list. I'll run through it real quick because I think it's worth mentioning one more time. Caleb Edwards, the tight end, has a June 7th through 9th official visit. Then the next weekend, June 14th through 16th, you got 4 California kids coming in: John Mills, Josiah Sharma, Hayden Lowe, and Dijon Lee, who we just mentioned a little bit earlier. The next week after that, Marcus Harris out of Mater Dei. You got Madden Faramo and Matai Tungai out of who's currently committed to USC. So Texas is really branching out at the moment. And as you can tell, I mean,
look,
they're not going to go out and just add anybody. They're adding some big-time guys here.
All I got to say about this guy, give me a 6'3", 210 linebacker with a cast on that runs 4.55, okay? I will take that guy all day. But here's what I love about him on tape. He flows with patience and control. But then when it's time to open up and run, he's got closing speed. And when he hits you, the play is over. That's what Nick Saban used to look for in linebackers. I know this from Under Armour, okay? When he hits you, the play is over. That's what this guy is right here, man. There is some natural hip power, boom, that comes with his contact. He is running through you, probably why I had played with a broken arm most of last year. But this is one of the top linebackers in the countries. David Rawls, yeah, he's nationally ranked top 100 for some people, and 100% he is. So we love it on Texas football, what Texas is doing in the state of California. I couldn't be happier to see the players that are scheduled for official visits. Hayden Lowe, big time out of Oaks Christian. And by the way, they're covering all the cool schools too. Mission Viejo, Dijon Lee, Jay Sarah Catholic here, Mater Dei with Baker, Marcus Harris this year. They're covering all the cool schools too. Westlake Village. Those are some good trips, CJ. Are we going to have to draw straws for these or what?
Well, I don't know, Jerry. I was just out at Bastrop in Killeen while you were, swimming around.
I owe you. You're saying I owe you?
So that might just have to be the trade-off there. No, but I also wanted to bring this up because Madden comes from a very athletic family as well. His sister Megan was a 4-time All-American in the circle for UCLA, #1 overall recruit in the softball class of 2018. So gives you a little bit of an understanding of where that athleticism comes from. The parents, obviously, they had some good genes, I would say. And Madden on tape, you certainly see that of him running all over the field, laying the wood. Broken hand doesn't stop linebackers, and I'm all for it if you're able to use that club to your advantage.
Okay, we're going to start taking your questions now. After I do read for Mark Saunders here, he's the sole sponsor of the Recruiting Breakdown, and we thank him so much. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? Here's some great news. Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders is the only insurance agent you'll need to keep tabs on protection for all your stuff, everything from your home, car and boat, to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Mark Saunders is so good. Bobby Burton's getting an ATV in Nashville, and Mark Saunders is going to be his agent. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? You'll be in great hands with Mark Saunders, 35 years of experience. Texas 11 Mark Saunders. Give him a call, 512-218-8571. All right, Vivek B's got a good question here. How does Christian compare to Coleman's twins? Who's better? Okay, so the Coleman twins are freakishly strong for their age. When I was at Cedar Hill a few weeks ago. Devin Coleman, he limped to a 585 in the squat, and then Jordan threw up 600. So the combination of almost 1,200 pounds in the squat. Jordan Coleman is a right tackle or guard. Him and John Mills are very similar, and Nick Brooks as well. Those are three guys in this 25 class that Texas has coming in for visits that could play right tackle, or they could be really kick butt guards. Okay. Those three guys are very similar. Devin Coleman, I think, is going to be a center at the next level who could play guard. Devin Coleman, a lot of natural power, great personality, very personality similar to Daniel Cruz, by the way. Yes. He's got that center personality, that kind of leadership. CJ, you saw it in person with him and Jordan. You did a video interview with them. And Jordan has been the guy on the radar for the longest. He's the big guy, the biggest of the three triplets. But Devin, personality-wise, almost has an alpha sense to him.
Yeah, he does. And it's funny whenever you compare the two to Jackson Christian, I see Jackson Christian as that guard in this class because he's all business, Jerry. I remember we talked to him a little bit after his visit April 13th. And, you get the sense from him that, hey, man, I'm only here because, I've got to know what it's like at Texas. This isn't a vacation trip for me. This isn't for fun. This is business. And I'm here because – listen, I got to understand what's the best choice for me. Whereas the Colemans are, they'll kick their feet back a little bit. They'll joke with you. They'll have some fun with you. Yeah. So to your point, they absolutely have some more personality there, and one that you probably need to have as a center if you're going to be that vocal, piece in the middle of your offensive line. I look at Jackson Christian as a guy that just nods over, gets the call, looks across, and just gets ready for work. So I like that point. That's an interesting one. I hadn't necessarily put that together just yet, but no, now that I'm visualizing the two of the personalities next to one another, it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. Antoine, we're going to stay on offensive line here. We got a lot of offensive line questions right now. Where are we with Tyler Thomas from Dickinson, home of the great Donnie Little? Tyler Thomas scheduled to visit June 21st. He has A&M the weekend before, I think LSU in June as well. Look, he's really come back from foot surgery that cost him the majority of his junior season really well. He looked good in January when I was down there. He was moving well. I've heard he's shed even a few more pounds and has looked really good to multiple college coaches here in the spring evaluation period in May. Again, the depth offensive line in Texas in 25 is about as good as you'll find. I'm not going to say there was a class, maybe the Brockermeyer's class was a great class in state for offensive line. I'm not sure it's top heavy like that class was, but depth wise, it's going to be similar. So really good offensive linemen in the class. Texas is a really big fan of Tyler Thomas. They're going to take 5, maybe 6, but let's just say they take 5. They're not going to have room for everybody. So now we're going to see, since one domino fell, do the rest of these guys, A&M has 3 commitments as well in the offensive line, right? So it becomes a numbers game a little bit with A&M having 3 guys. Texas now having somebody on board. Does everybody sit back and wait till July? Or do some of those offensive linemen, I'm not talking of Fasusi, the 5-star offensive tackle, or the tackles, any of those kind of tackle swing guard players, any of those guys kind of move off their timelines. It'll be interesting to see. Not out of the question. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that would be something I'm looking for. Jay, last offensive line question here. Is Lamont Rogers a possibility? Yes. Lamont Rogers is a possibility. I think Texas and LSU may be the top 2 there. And I'm not saying what order. A&M's very much in it as well. I think he's going to visit all 3. And recruitment is he lives in Mesquite with his mom. He's originally from Mississippi. His father lives in Mississippi. So is there an LSU pool there? Brad Davis is probably hoping there is. But, yeah, Lamont Rogers is in play. Kyle Flood was by that school last week. He was in DFW seeing all the linemen last week. So he did get by and see him. UT Boy, the kid from Louisville, is a dog. Yeah, absolutely. Michael Fasusi is. I know people ask about that, CJ. I think that one goes into June for the official visits. I know there's all the talk right now. Texas was the leader. Then it was Oklahoma. Now it's A&M. I think we're going to see at the end of the June visits where that goes.
Hey, Jerry, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Texas sitting at May 14th. They have 7 commits in the class.
Yeah.
We've seen Texas go on runs in the summer months, and we've talked about over 40 official visitors scheduled to come in. Some of them obviously already in the class, but for the wide majority guys that Texas is still pursuing, still hoping to earn a verbal commitment from at the moment. I put it up on Texas Football earlier today. When you look back at previous cycles, that June, July month, those 30 days ranging from the middle of June to the middle of July. That's where you see Texas really get all of their guys. The 2023 cycle, we saw 13 commits in the month of June alone. And then last year we saw 11 ranging from June 17th to July 12th. So Texas gets a lot of its work done. When you look at where this class is at the moment with 7 kids, is it out of the picture to think by the end of June that number might be double, or you might see that, up to about 16 or 17 potentially?
Yeah, I think mid-July it could be close to 20, honestly.
Okay.
So if we look at it, we have 42 guys on our official visit list on TexasFootball.com right now. 42 official visitors, I believe it is, for June. That doesn't count DeCorian Moore, who will visit in June. He just hasn't released his dates yet. So, and Texas has 7 commitments. So there's 35 guys coming in for official visits. Texas, I could see a path to 20 guys out of this class. I really could. A lot of these guys will make their decisions in early July. Some will be late June. Some will be early July. Some may wait until right before, into July, early August. But I definitely can, because I think you'll see 2 or 3 more guys added to this official visit list. Wouldn't shock me if a couple more D linemen are added. Another kid from California is added. So I could see Texas up that 45, 46 official visitors. And if 7 of those guys are committed and you're sitting there with 39 guys that are in play, with where Texas is at with the momentum in the program right now, it's hard to look at that and say they won't win a third of those. Now you got to you got to fill out your positions and your needs, but just a pure numbers game, it's hard for me to believe Texas won't be at 20 commitments before the season starts.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, again, we've seen it under this staff. They get all their work done in the summer months, so by the time it does come for the season to roll around, their focus can be 100% on the team at hand and kind of figuring out who those last couple of pieces are. Last year we saw it with Kobe Black, a couple late flips as well, Xavier Filsaime amongst that bunch. So I do think you'll see that number get up to about 16, 17, 20 not out of the picture by the end of July as well. So trying to knock all this out so they can focus on the first year in the SEC. That, to me, is the priority, and I love that blueprint that's been set in place with this staff.
I said this to Bobby on Coffee and Football. This morning. We were talking about recruiting, and the crazy thing, CJ, I'm sure you've heard the same thing. In whether it's in Texas or Mobile at Saraland or Georgia or Florida, I've not heard a single head coach that doesn't want his 25 kids committed before the start of the season. I mean, like every single one. I haven't heard one coach say, well, if he takes it in December, that's fine. They want this stuff done because of how crazy the recruiting process is now. And with these June official visits, with everything that comes with the process, from media coverage to NIL, just everything that plays into it now. I haven't heard from one coach that doesn't want their guys committed by the end of the summer. And I really haven't heard from one parent of a kid Texas is recruiting that isn't thinking the same thing. So I think everything's kind of fallen in place for all the decisions to be made before, mid-August.
Yeah, I think you saw that with Jackson Christian, a little bit. He was just, hey, I'm cool. I know my decision. I want this over with. The media, the hoopla that comes with being a big recruit, not for me. Also, to the point with official visits now moving up to, that summer month for the most part, you don't see them all too much in the middle of the football season. I know staffs would prefer it a little bit earlier in the year. It kind of expedites the recruiting process a little bit, where you see a lot of decisions happen probably 5-6 years ago in the middle of the football season. Now all of them almost 7 or 8 months prior to when they were around that time. So I'm all for
it. In Texas, just curious, the modern day running back Jordan Davison, was that a loss, or was Texas really not hot on him? Texas was hot on Jordan Davison. Look, I think the reality for Texas on this is Tashard Choice is a great recruiter, right? There's no doubt about it. But if you look at Ohio State and you look at Texas, if there's one area that was tough for Texas in this class so far, and by the way, we're going to get to James Simon in a second. He's got his announcement date coming up May 29th, which I think Texas is the only official visit, CJ. And I mean, where else, we'll see what happens. All right. But Jordan Davison, look, Ohio State's going to lose Travion Henderson and Quinshaw Judkins after a season to the NFL. If Jaden Blue has a great year, he can go to the NFL. It's going to be a deep 25 running back class in the NFL draft. And those guys are falling on draft boards every year, the position. Rod Babers has talked about it at length. But this is one where Tashard Choice may have had his work cut out for him. I mean, not every guy, you look at Texas running back depth chart and you say, okay, Cedric Baxter will be back next year. Jaden Blue may or may not be back next year. Trey Wisner is going to be a sophomore. Oh, then Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark have come in too. And they've got Texas has a other running back in 25 committed, Ricky Stewart. Oh, and by the way, they already have a 26 running back committed too. So at some point, even the short choice can't overcome a depth chart. And I think that really helped Ohio State in this one. But yeah, Texas liked Jordan Davison quite a bit. They like James Simon, CJ, who's going to announce his decision May 29th.
Yeah, again, I feel really good with what the sits for James Simon. Of course, we talked to him after the spring game a little bit. I got to talk to him one-on-one and on Texas football not too long ago as well for a little Saturday conversation. If you haven't seen that yet, go back and check it out. It gives you an understanding of how James Simon is as a personality off the field, but also gives you an idea of how he thinks with the ball in his hands and on the field. I think he gives a pretty cool, kind of idea of the person that he is with the competitive nature that comes with. But his conversation, or I guess our conversation with him after the spring game really gave me an understanding of what he was looking for. And that's, I love the way that the offense works. They put up big plays. The splash plays are there. The running game might not have had a great day, but I saw all those guys get involved in the passing game. And I saw them all get involved with different ways to get the ball in their hands. And that's something I look for because I do believe that the passing game is something that I can bridge and bring to the table that's a little bit unique to my game specifically.
Yeah, I want to say something too on Jordan Davison because I'd be remiss if I didn't. I'm not saying Jordan Davison was scared of the competition at Texas, not at all. Jordan Davis is a tremendous running back. I will say this: there have been guys in the past that are big time players that maybe the path to the field looks more appealing at Georgia than it did versus Alabama when Nick was there, or at Alabama versus Georgia when Kirby is at Georgia. So these things happen. It doesn't mean any of these kids are scared of competition. Jamarion Biller decommitted from Texas, went to Alabama. I mean, he actually thought the running back situation at Alabama was somewhat inviting to him. That doesn't mean he's scared of competition. That doesn't mean the situation at Bama wasn't tougher than the situation at Texas. All these guys are different, but the one thing they want to do is get on the field. So if a kid sees a path to the field quicker at another school, I just want to be clear. That's not me saying he's scared of competition. That's not it at all. He's just looking for the path to play earlier and carry the ball a little bit more. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. When you're a blue blood, that's why you recruit a bunch of really good players, by the way. Antoine, what about senior evaluation late takes? CJ, I think the Texas staff is always going to evaluate through the whistle. I think we've already seen a couple of guys like an Aiden Anning pop up this spring, but I do think Texas will continue to watch 25s all the way through.
Yeah, it's not often that you see Texas go in and kind of find those late gems. I know that they like to have that class built out by the end of July for the most part, but you do see it every now and then. Aiden Anning, as you mentioned, was probably one of the last guys Texas added to its big board in terms of prospect. He, of course, has a top three of Texas, Arkansas, and Miami at the moment going into these June officials. So we'll see where that kind of shakes out. Of course, Texas did give him the VIP treatment the last time he was on campus, but to that point, Texas will continue to recruit. They'll continue to evaluate. They're on the trail, the recruiting trail at the moment, bouncing around from high school to high school, seeing who all they can find in the 24 or the 25, 26, and the 27 classes. So we'll continue to see. But right now, I have to imagine amongst these 44, 45 guys that they have coming in for June officials, you'll see a vast majority of that class built up of those kids.
Yeah, agree. I think if you see a position in this class that pops up for Texas, it's going to be defensive back. I really think that's the position I'm watching with Texas in 25 is defensive back, whether that be safety, whether that be corner. See how this plays out in June. By Brandon Huey, good question. Jerry, CJ, is every offer from UT committable, or start pulling an offer for a better player? How do coaches navigate this? So let's say you have 8 defensive linemen for 3 spots. At some point in time, those offers are committable. But when it comes to first come, first serve, if somebody commits to you, then obviously it's off the table. Now I do think there's nuances to this, CJ. I think when coaches offer, they're committable, but do they remain committable if Texas finds somebody else they like better? Obvious answer is no.
Right. And I think you see that very often, actually. I mean, Texas goes out and they offer, about 150 to 200 kids each cycle. Some schools get up to the 300 or the 400 offer range, and yet you only see about 50 of those kids visit campus for official visits. You only probably get 40% of those kids in total to visit campus one time. So that's really kind of telling, and how quickly these offers kind of kind of disappear, not necessarily hold their value, but Texas, at least when they're after a kid, they'll know. They'll be in constant communication with them at all times. They'll be looking to get them on campus as often as possible. Of course, setting up official visits, coming down for games, whatever it might be, they'll be felt like a priority right away. Whereas some of those offers that we see kind of handed out in the early eval stages, you don't hear much more about those prospects because Texas has gone a different direction.
Yeah. By the way, Vivek B, we're going to answer your question on Deuce Williams, on Anthony Deuce Williams, but want to bring this up from Jason Watts, 2:30 kick in August. That came out this morning. The Texas and Colorado State will kick off at 2:30. Hey, dumb, but boy, Colorado State will be struggling with that one. I can't imagine working out in Colorado all summer, coming to play August 31st in Austin at 2:30.
Yes,
that's going to be
now. My goodness,
that's going to be one hell of a tough task for Colorado State. All right, but yeah, that's not the best for Texas fans. But obviously here, Vivek B asked, didn't Sark essentially pull the offer from Deuce Williams? Okay, this is kind of the nuances we talk about. So when Deuce Williams committed to Texas, Jeff Choate was the linebackers coach. Obviously, when Jeff Choate got the head coaching job at Nevada and Johnny Nansen came in, Johnny Nansen's looking for a little different guy at linebacker. So that's kind of one of those nuances of, okay, did Texas technically pull the offer? Probably, but what was the way they used? Well, we got a new linebacker coach, and there's truth in that. If you look at who Johnny Nansen's recruiting, it's a little bit different. So I think that was more of the hire of Johnny Nansen in what he was looking at linebacker and what kind of he preferred in terms of skill sets. So nothing against Deuce Williams, really good player. Will probably go on to be a good player at other places. I think he's got officials to Florida, Baylor, a couple other places. Good player. Maybe just didn't fit what Johnny Nansen was looking for. I think we know right now what Johnny Nansen's looking for, and that is big, fast, and physical. I mean, yep. It's pretty easy to see his type right now. And then you have a Jonathan Cunningham who's extremely instinctive player, somewhat like Leonga Lafau, the way he just flows and moves to the football and then has that quickness when he sees ball. So Jonathan Cunningham, a long lever guy that has some of those similar traits to a Leonga Lafau. So I think that was just more of when the coaching change at Texas. All right, Antoine has one here. Oh, Brandon Hughes said those lead the divorce. I thought we had our first Rory McIlroy question here, but we don't. Okay, so Antoine, Jason Stokes Jr. and Sway Griffin are 2 recruits I'll be monitoring. Yeah, Antoine, I think that's actually pretty good. And CJ, talk about Ramones Adams as well. I mean, that's another corner in Central Texas that Texas is monitoring.
Yeah, I'll start with Stokes out of Pflugerville Weiss, 6'3" cornerback, really lengthy. You go out and you look at who Texas has been targeting. Obviously, Dijon Lee, the most recent cornerback to lock in an official visits. 6'4", can run and has great wingspan. Stokes is another one of those kids that fits that mold a little bit. Recruitment's really starting to blow up, and I'm sure in that winter evaluation time where coaches were on the trail a little bit, he wasn't as active in the weight room, in the weight training. I think he was dinged up a little bit. Now coaches are able to get out there, see him move laterally, see him able to work out a little bit. LSU just offered the other day. I would expect Texas to continue to monitor. They were up there last week as well, kind of getting a lay of the land with Flugerville Weiss. Of course, they have a number of big-time talent prospects. J.J. Weiss up there, 26 interior offensive lineman, and 27 Trey Moore, wide receiver, 6'3". That kid's going to be a national prospect as well. But Swade Griffin's another one. He's a state medalist that just won just placed in the UIL track meet 2 weeks ago. Recruitment's a little bit slower at the moment, but beginning to heat up during this moment as well. Ramont Adams is the one I wanted to mention. Currently committed to Texas Tech, placed silver in the triple jump for the UIL state track meet as well. Terry Joseph was out there the other day, as at the same time I was, basically, to see Ramont Adams in action. Really talented kid. You see it. He's got springy lower bodies. He moves very well. He's locked into his commitment to Texas Tech. Has an official visit June 7th through 9th. But right now, Texas at least looking at other options. And we've talked about it, Jerry. Right now, 5 kids at that cornerback spot have it locked in official visits. It's Caleb Edwards, Dorian Brew, Dijon Lee, Aiden Andings, and I think right now you're going to see them kind of venture out a little bit. You know, their backyard is a good place to start, of course, but we'll see just who else is added to that group at the moment.
Yeah, David Rawls, Madden, the linebacker from J. Sarah, June 21st through 23rd. That'll be a national battle recruitment, Washington, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas, USC. So you name it, they're in on it. This made me laugh. Nancy wants big, fast film. It does. No, but Anthony Williams is a 6'3.5", 185-pound guy who has more physical development in front of him. I think if you look at what Johnny Nanson's really going after in this class, I mean, Elijah Barnes is 6'3", 230 right now. Riley Pettijohn's 6'2", 215, 220. This crazy man with the cast, Madden, is 6'3", 210, 215. So the one guy that maybe needed to gain some weight was a top target for Texas. Jonathan Cunningham he's more of a slender guy. He's more of a middle guy like Leonga Lafau. Those outside guys, I think bigger frame guys is what Nanson's looking for. Matea Tegoi out of San Clemente. I think he's up to about 205, but that guy's going to be 235 in no time. So I think maybe he has a bigger, longer frame. So I didn't probably word that correctly, but that's what I was talking about. That made me laugh. That was good. Somebody's asking about Rory. I brought it up. Rory McIlroy, he filed for divorce from his wife in Florida yesterday before getting on a plane and going to Valhalla. So I was joking around about that. Not at his expense. I figured everybody had seen that. It was all over social media. So, all right, let's see. What else do we have? Let's reset this real quick, CJ. This is a recruiting breakdown live. Thank you very much to Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders for being the sole sponsor of the recruiting breakdown. We talked about Jackson Christian. We're going to get to Christian Calderon, your question, in a second. We talked about Jackson Christian committing to University of Texas to Kyle Flood yesterday in person during Kyle Flood's visit to Port Neches Groves on Monday. We'll talk about the OL here and coming up. We also talked about the 2 California kids now coming in for official visits, Dijon Lee and Madden, the linebacker out of J. Sarah Catholic. So that gives Texas 8 official visitors from the state of California. Terry Joseph's still trying on Adonis Curry from Corthill and Lancaster. So that could be 9. We'll see if anybody else pops up. Could Texas get as many as 10 official visitors from the West Coast in this cycle? We'll see. Probably will settle around 8 or 9. But we love it on Texas football, that what Johnny Nanson's doing in California. I mean, big-time guys, big-time D lineman and Sharma, big-time edge guy, Hayden Lowe, Marco Jones, big-time linebacker prospects. Obviously, Dijon Lee is a national ballot corner with Georgia, Alabama, Washington, and others. So Texas is in on the right guys, but they're, gird up your loins. They're big boy recruitments. And then that offensive line question we had. All right, let's bring that one up here. Christian Calderon. How confident do we feel about OL recruiting? Who we can close on, and what's the dream class for the OL? I have a best class scenario on OnTexasFootball.com. I throw that up every couple of weeks so people could get a feel. I really think let's say Jackson Christian's in the class. So who's really left? Michael Fasusi, Lamont Rogers, John Mills, Jordan Coleman, Nick Brooks, Devin Coleman, Tyler Thomas, right? I mean, I think those are the guys. Maybe I forgot somebody. I think those are the guys.
Yep.
You're going to have a 5 or 6 man offensive line class, CJ. 5 for sure. Outside shot 6. But how that class falls, I think will be interesting. Texas has to get one true left tackle prospect in this class. I would say Jordan Coleman, Nick Brooks, and John Mills are all those swing guys. They could be a right tackle. They could be a guard. They'd be tremendous guards. A couple of those guys could end up fighting for a right tackle position. And then you have Devin Coleman, who's a center or guard. Jackson Christian's a guard. Tyler Thomas would be a guard. So if you look at Texas and the guys they're bringing in, I need the class right now. I don't think Josh Petty's going to end up officially visiting in June. So I think the class right now is going to come from this group, barring a change here in the next couple of weeks of May and an official visit being set up.
Yeah, I like the start to this offensive line group. Of course, Jackson Christian, we've talked about him. He could be a guard, can move to center. He's a guy with the length and wingspan to play tackle, even at 6'5", 82-inch wingspan. But then you start looking at who else Texas is bringing in. I think John Mills is the top of the list, as is Michael Fasusi. Those two guys, if Texas lands both of them and holds on to Christian, you're looking at a pretty good group regardless. Now Texas is also in a great spot for the Cedar Hill twins. 2 of the 3 triplets up there with the Coleman brothers, Jordan and Devin. If you're able to add them, now you're looking at a really good offensive line class. And I think Nick Brooks coming out of Iowa, I know Georgia's involved heavily there. Iowa's still trying to retain some homegrown advantage there, not necessarily working out at the moment, but that's going to be a tough pull. And I think Georgia, again, being that top dog right now at the moment, that's the biggest competition for the Longhorns at the moment. But Texas, again, I think if you end up with a class that looks similar to, John Mills, Jackson Christian, the Coleman brothers, and Michael Fasusi, there's no way that you look at that at the end of the day and say, wow, we could have done better. I mean, that's a pretty darn good class. And I think if you're adding 5 guys at the moment, and you're talking about how many people are still in the Texas offensive line room at the moment, the ceilings that these kids will be able to raised by the time it's time for them to get on the field is significantly higher than what it would be if they were expected to get on the field right away.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I think we say 5, 6 possibility. 5 is a good number if it ends up being that, because 2026 is going to be really, really good and could end up being better than even 25 in state. I think John Turntine's a 5-star tackle prospect, stud. Toa Katoa, big-time guard. I put Nicholas Robertson from Klein, 2026 interior offensive lineman. I have him on offer watch for Texas. Going to end up being one of the top-ranked guards in the country. And then that there's the kid Primus, the guard out of Midland, who I think will be a Texas offer in June, probably at camp. This 26 class of offensive linemen is going to be really good in state too. So that's kind of one of the things that Texas is going to look to balance in the 25 and 26 class. All right, we got a couple of minutes left. Everybody's talking about, I guess, is it been announced that ESPN is going to be at Notre Dame at A&M to start the season? I haven't seen that. If that's what's being announced, not really a total shock. I mean, Clemson and Georgia, neutral site game in Atlanta, right? So you go to A&M. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere. Mike Elko's first game when Notre Dame is coming to town there. And Notre Dame is going to be ranked really high preseason. So that doesn't totally shock me as far as your opening weekend games. If Georgia was playing at Clemson, I guarantee ESPN would be there, right? But that game being Notre Dame being at A&M versus a couple of neutral site games, I can see why ESPN went that way.
Yeah, I see it 100%. It's funny, A&M might actually be hosting 2, ESPN game days next year. That's to start the year and end the year whenever Texas come back rolling around that weekend of Thanksgiving. But that's not to say, Texas won't get theirs. We've talked about it. Michigan's likely to have already has big noon kickoff, the Fox group. And then, of course, when Georgia comes to town, and we'll see what happens in the Cotton Bowl, 2 other opportunities for the Longhorns to host big-time networks in attendance. So at the end of the day, it's Texas playing on the biggest stage, on the biggest networks, in front of the biggest fans, and the best conference in the college football universe at the moment. I think it's really encouraging. It's more eyes. Texas is in a great spot at the moment with its program. So, it's no better time, Jerry.
Yeah. And by the way, we're over 2,000 people on this live stream. Thank you very much to everybody. I want to say this. We're going to get to your question on James Simon. David Keith Williams We're going to talk about that as well. It ties into it. But look, I just want to say thanks to everybody who continues to support On Texas Football. We're almost 46,200 subscribers to the channel. We're the number 2 in all of the college football team market. It's been a big growth. Myself, CJ, Bobby Burton, Rod Babers, our producer, Matthew Hutchins, does an amazing job. Everybody says thank you for continuing to support us, and pass the word to your friends because we're going to have a big celebration at 50, and the 100K celebration is going to be a bad mother. I'll tell you that. So, all right, Mr. Talk Too Much. I like James Simon. He seems to have 3 down traits. You know, CJ, I agree with 817, Mr. Talk Too Much. I do think so. Look, he's a coach's kid. His dad was a really good player at Louisiana Tech and in the NFL briefly. Coached in the college game for 12 years. Used to be the AD at Dallas Roosevelt High School, by the way. Him and Tashard Choice have a long-standing relationship, I believe. But James Simon, one of the things that kind of struck me about him in person, he's got a tremendous frame for a running back. He is going to be 5'11 and a half, 220 pounds, perfectly proportioned, rocked up in about 2 years. That's what stood out to me, aside from what you see on the tape.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, able to talk to these guys a little bit, you get an understanding of how they're built, where they like to lift, and of course, where they need to continue to fill out. Right now, if you're James Simon, just continue to work because your body's going to do it naturally. You have good proportions, as you mentioned, but also he mentioned, you know, being able to catch the football. You know, that's something that he thinks he's able to separate himself from the pack with his ability out in space in the passing game. We saw that with Jaden Blue, Jerry, back in the 7-on-7 circuit when he was in high school. You know, he looked like a wide receiver at times. He looked like a little shifty slot guy that can tote the rock. And then, of course, James Simon is another guy who believes that pass catching ability is something that will allow him to separate himself. And you can't play for Tashard Choice and Steve Sarkisian if you can't catch the rock.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And David Keith said you spoke about James Simon earlier. Do you think Ricky Stewart, or one of the 2024 running backs, are dominant and talented enough to carry UT if they had to? I'm not sure if any of them are. I think it remains to be seen. Look, I think Christian Clark's got a chance to be a really good player. I think Christian Clark and Jarrett Gibson really fit what Sark wants to do in the run game, moving to the SEC. They both have those body frame types. So I don't know about that. I think one of the things that I would say is that Texas is going to have 2 or 3 backs that are going to be really good players that they can go to and rotate. I don't know if I see a guy, but look, that remains to be seen, to be fair. Christian Clark, Jarrett Gibson just got their feet wet in college football, and they're both really good players. I was told late in the spring that Texas thought they had 4 or 5 future pros in the running back room. All right. And so that was, you're talking about, look, there were 5 guys that they were talking about: Cedric Baxter, Jaden Blue, Wisner, Christian Clark, and Jarrett Gibson. 4 or 5 pros. If they hit on 80% of those guys, Texas running back room's really, really good. And that kind of falls in line with this question from Syracuse Horn. Seems like we need to get a burner at running back. After Blue is gone, our other running backs aren't super speedy. I think Wisner's got edge quickness. I think Ricky Stewart, the one thing I'll say about Ricky Stewart is he didn't run track this year because he was rehabbing a little bit of a knee, not a major knee injury, just something he played through the season on that state title run. But every high school coach in East Texas said that guy's faster than you think. He's faster than he looks on tape. So maybe he's going to have a little bit more of a gear than what we give him credit for when you see him in person. The other one, CJ, in 26, Racine Guillory can absolutely go. I figured you were going there. I was going to lead you into it.
That's exactly where I was going to go. You know, when you talk about the strengths and how you kind of build up and complement each running back in each cycle, Racine Guillory to me is a guy who might be the top running back in the state of Texas for 2026. Great track times already, and that's coming off of a knee injury in which that kind of sidelined him or hampered him a little bit during the season. So he, to me, when you watch his tape, Jerry, you see the explosiveness. You see the one cut and go ability that we've seen with Jaden Blue that allows him to use his speed to separate. And that's not to mean that's, you know, the end-all be-all for these running backs. Texas has had great success with Bijan Robinson, who ran in the mid-4.4s. Roschon, not necessarily a burner. And Jonathan Brooks, although he showed it a little bit earlier in his career, I wouldn't necessarily put him in that category either as a true speed back. You know, he can go up. What's more intriguing to me with Tashard Choice's running backs and the way he develops is the way that they run through contact. Their balance and ability to kind of just brush off arm tackles and hits, stay up and fall forward. We've seen it with all three of his running backs here. We've seen it a little bit with C.J. Baxter. And, of course, Jaden Blue, a little bit of an outlier in this regard, but up to 212 now, Jerry. If you're able to maintain that speed at that frame, you're going to be able to run through the tackles a little bit more. And, of course, they're going to find the way to get the ball in space and use that speed to make home run hits.
A couple of things here. I want a reminder from our producer, Matthew. Thank you for reminding me of this. I was going to forget this. We have a 13-minute interview coming with Cade Phillips. We're going to publish at about 3. I was at Hightower High yesterday, had a really good sit down with him, talked to him about recruiting, talked to him about his position, defensive back, corner, safety, talked to him about track and kind of his timetable for making the decision. So you'll get to know Cade Phillips a little bit better here about 3 p.m. because, we write about these guys in the industry a lot. We're trying to bring you, CJ's doing a great job of that as well. We're trying to bring you these guys more so you can get to know them, so you can hear what they say instead of just seeing what is written about them. So we got a good interview coming with Cade Phillips here about 3 p.m. I'm also, when we leave this, I'm headed to another high school. We'll have another one for you tomorrow as well. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it'll be a good get to know segment. The other thing I want to say is CJ wanted to mention this, a guy that people had asked a lot about in portal recruiting. Cormani McClain is visiting Florida. Looks like Florida's going to take a wild card on this one. May even be a walk-on and not a scholarship player through NIL and earn a scholarship. So we'll see if that's what goes down. Cormani McClain at Florida. Look, when he initially hit the portal, Florida State, Florida, Miami, nobody was really showing interest in him. Texas made a call, didn't show interest in him. Does it speak to where Florida's at corner because Texas plays them next year, CJ? We'll find out.
Yeah, a little bit as well. Also, speaking about taking non-scholarship walk-on kids, that have a past. I mean, IG Hall just found a home at UCF, the former Longhorn in Alabama wide receiver. So, best of luck to him. But for Cormani McClain, that would be that would be an interesting addition to Florida. I think they're looking at their roster saying, yeah, this will be the time for Billy Napier. Yeah, I don't have much room left on my leash. If I can add, a guy with a little bit of baggage, but also a difference maker on the field, I need to do that because of the gauntlet schedule that we have scheduled up and also where I am in regards to my job and that security there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a little piece. And as far as portal recruiting with Texas, we haven't heard anything new there. Somebody on the website on ontexasfootball.com, go be an OG member, OTF OG, $39.95 annual subscription. Somebody asked about Johnny Bowens. We've heard he's got some academic work to do. So, and that's a trimesters, I believe, at Oregon. So he's got to stick his head in the books for a little while here. And if he comes out on the other side, the correct side on that, I think Texas would have some interest. But we'll see what that plays out there with Johnny Bowens in the class work. Nothing new on the second DB in the class. Nothing new on punter. We're not saying it's not happening. Just no new updates as of, last night, CJ, on that. So I think that's where everything's at. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Recruiting Breakdown live on this Tuesday. All 2,000 plus, 2,200 plus of you. Thank you so much for continuing to support CJ, myself, Bobby Burton, Rod Babers, producer Matthew Hutchinson, Blake Monroe's taking a little vacation, and the whole entire On Texas football team. We thank you very much as we make this march towards 50,000, then 100,000 and more. We're going to get there with all you guys' support, and we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. And Texas is going to win a lot of games and have fun in the SEC. So thank you guys very much. And we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Y'all